Hello, lovelies. It's me, Maple, and welcome to the final part of my Mindfulness 101 series. And today we're going to be talking all about purpose, which obviously means a lot of things to a lot of different people. But at its core, it's simply just asking the question, why? Why do we do the things that we do? What motivates us? What drives us? A lot of people don't often think about purpose, though. Usually we are so overwhelmed with what's going on in our lives. The only thing we can focus on is the next step. What's the next thing that we have to do? But we don't really take time to step back and think about, why do we do the things that we do? Why am I doing this next step? What's the purpose behind it? And now you might be asking yourself, what's the purpose of even worrying about my purpose? Well, the science on the matter actually shows that purpose is one of the strongest indicators for general well-being. People who have a strong sense of purpose tend to report having happier and more fulfilling lives, regardless of things like income or social status. They usually have better physical health, better mental health, stronger relationships, even live longer. It helps people flourish. And just like every other thing we've discussed in this series, it's something that can be practiced and built upon by doing it intentionally. And by equipping ourselves with this tool belt of skills like awareness, connection, insight, and purpose, these things will be there for us when we need them the most in the future. So, let's choose a real-world example to show how we can apply purpose to our everyday lives. We're going to go with working out, which for most of us is something that we know that we should do, at least sometimes. But often we find it a struggle to actually get the motivation and initiative to actually do it. A lot of the times we don't put any thought behind why we're doing it. There may be some surface level motivations. Maybe you want to be healthier. Maybe you've been feeling tired and you want some more energy. Maybe you have a purpose that's a bit vain. Maybe you want to look nicer or fit into a particular pair of jeans that you haven't been able to fit into for a very long time. There are multiple purposes and motivations for almost every single thing that we do. There's not just one overarching purpose. But what we can do is be intentional about choosing which motivations, which pieces of purpose we want to focus on. So, if I went to go do a workout and I just think to myself, I have to work out, I'm going to not enjoy the process. I'm going to think, this is the worst thing. And then at the end, I might be like, oh, well, I did it. Good for me. And move on with my day. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I still did the thing I wanted to, but I was just going through the motions because that's what I feel like I was supposed to do. But if I take a moment, step back, and think, why am I working out? Really dig deep into it and find an even deeper motivation that I can focus on, such as I want to be healthy and have more energy so that I can spend better quality time with the people that I love. And then you can approach your workout with a sense of motivation because you're doing this for others as well as yourself. During the workout, you can reaffirm the purpose to yourself to help give you motivation throughout the workout. Maybe you put in extra effort, the workout becomes more efficient. And then at the end of the workout, you can celebrate the piece of self-love that you gave to yourself and to others. You can really think about the good that you've done with just this one action. So if you think about it, by practicing purposeful mindfulness, we can actually bring more meaning, more value to our lives out of basically thin air. And not only does purpose help us in our higher moments, but it also helps give us more resilience. Having a strong sense of purpose helps us get over adversity easier. We actually see this a lot in studies with cancer patients. Sometimes a terminal diagnosis forces people to really reevaluate what's important in their lives and why. And so you actually see a lot of people actually reporting being happier in general in their lives after hearing maybe the worst news of their entire lives. And it's because they're infusing purpose into everything that they do. And it doesn't justify or minimize the pain at all, but by having a deeper sense of meaning, it can help us reframe our adversity. It can give us perseverance to stay the course during the ups and downs of life. Maybe we can turn that argument with our friend into a chance to improve our relationship. Maybe we can view the struggle we're going through as an opportunity to learn or to grow. Even tremendous grief and pain can be turned into something beautiful and creative, or maybe a force to encourage you to help others. Purpose helps us get through the hard moments, and it helps us get even more out of the good moments. So with that in mind, let's begin our meditation. As always, I'd like you to find a comfortable position for yourself, whatever that means to you. You can choose to have your eyes opened or closed for the practice. And once you're settled, just bring awareness to yourself in this moment. Bring awareness to your breath, feeling the sensations in your body as you inhale and exhale. Let's do a few deep breaths here, in and out. Still keeping your attention on your breathing. And now, just like we've done in previous sessions, I'd like you to set an intention for the session. It can be anything, no matter how small or big, as long as it feels personal and meaningful to you. Also, haha, I tricked you. Because by setting an intention in previous sessions, you've been practicing having a sense of purpose this whole time. Got 'em. But since we are focusing on purpose, let's go a little bit deeper here than we have before. Don't just stop at one reason for doing this practice. Keep going. See if there's a deeper meaning or purpose you can find for doing this practice. You can think about what brought you to this series in general. You can think about what inspired you to click on this specific video at this specific moment. Keep going and keep finding deeper meaning. Maybe you have motivation of self-improvement. Maybe you have a motivation of wanting to be better for the people around you. It might even have a negative motivation. Maybe you clicked on this video out of guilt because it's something that you feel like you should do. We're not having any judgment here. We're just exploring all our motivations and how there doesn't have to be just one motivation. Now that we've explored many motivations, again, I'm going to ask you to set an intention for this session. Ideally, the most personal or deep motivation that you discovered. Perfect. That's perfect. Another deep breath in here. And another deep breath out. We're going to slightly shift into thinking about our values. If purpose is the why behind what we do, our values are like the compass that points us towards our purpose. So I'd like you to take a moment and think about what values you have. What traits that you think are important to you. And not just because someone says they should be important, but what you actually believe and feel is important to you. Do you want to act with kindness, compassion, courage, patience, passion? Really take some time to figure out what is at the core of who you are and who you want to be. Take a few more moments still. Really dig in to yourself as much as you can. But also remember that this is not a finite list. So don't worry if you think it's incomplete or something might not be right, or maybe you didn't go deep enough. You can always come back and refine it later. We're just doing some exploring. The next step is to apply our values. It doesn't do anything just to figure out what your values are if you don't actually apply them to anything. good intentions are great, but they don't get anything done. So I'd like you to think about a recent time where you really embodied one of your values. A moment that you felt proud of yourself in. As usual, it doesn't matter how big or how small. Really draw attention to this moment. Really celebrate yourself right now. When you do embody your values and purpose, it's something that you should definitely be proud of yourself for, even if it's small. And next, I'd like you to brainstorm something that you could do in the next little while that would also embody your values. Maybe it's something you've been putting off, or maybe it's a brand new idea. Think about actions that you could take. Take a second to really imagine or visualize yourself doing this action. And think about how it would make you feel if you did do this action. One of the places in our regular day-to-day lives where it's the most beneficial to think about purpose is when we're currently in a stressful environment. So, for example, if you're in university and it's exam time, you might just feel overwhelmed. You might get stuck in a negative thought spiral and feel like there's no way out. But if you take a step back and reaffirm why you're taking this program, what's driving you on the other side. Maybe it's security by having a job that pays well so that you can spend your mental efforts elsewhere with people who you love. Maybe it's to get a job that you're passionate about, that would make your life more enriched. And by thinking about this purpose, it can help us step by step study, exam, study, exam, and get through the stressful period. So, think about something in your current life that's been stressing you out or weighing you down. Good. And now think if there's any way that by bringing your values or a sense of purpose to this situation can help reframe it in your mind to put you back in the driver's seat so it doesn't feel out of control. Good, good, good. And bring attention to how you feel in this moment. Do you feel a different perspective? Do you feel invigorated? Do you feel confused? There's no judgment here. Bring awareness to how you feel. And then bring your awareness back to your breath. In whatever pattern feels natural to you in this moment. Bring your awareness back to just your body and the sensations of breathing. Good, 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 good. Good, good, good. Perfect. To close out our session, I'd like for you to set an intention or purpose for the rest of your day or for tomorrow if it's the evening for you. Dig even just a little bit deeper than the surface and really find something that speaks to you. And think about what actions you can do to actually follow through with this intention. open your eyes if they're closed. Bring yourself back into your body. But just before we finish, I'd like you again just to think about how you feel in this moment. It doesn't have to be revolutionary or world-changing. It can be something simple. Perfect. Good. You're all done. And we're all done. The series. But since this is the last video of this series, I really wanted to take some time myself to figure out what the most meaningful points to me were. Because I know that I've thrown a lot of information your way. I know for sure I've absorbed a lot of information just researching and getting prepared for these videos. So I did some thinking and meditating myself, and I came up with a list of, I guess, the key things, at least my personal key takeaways. I've said before that meditation and mindfulness is a very personal thing. So just because these are my key takeaways doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be yours, but I was on this journey just as well as you, so I thought that I wanted to share. My first key point is easier said than done, but try not to feel like you're doing something wrong. Try not to get too caught up if you skip a meditation or 20, or if you do something that's the opposite of your values, if you do something that's the opposite of something that you learned in a meditation. We all make mistakes. We're all imperfect. I'm not expecting you to be perfect. You shouldn't expect yourself to be perfect. One of the cornerstones of mindfulness is reserving judgment, to approach things with compassion. And that should extend to ourselves. We should give ourselves grace and compassion when we mess up, not to get caught up in our mistakes, because that stops us from moving forwards. My next key takeaway is to unapologetically celebrate your wins. Celebrate the mundane moments. Celebrate the small things that bring us joy. And this doesn't mean to rub it in the face of everyone else from a place of self-righteousness, but to actually be proud of yourself, to actually find joy. And it can be hard to find these moments, so if you do find one, celebrate it. Why not? My next point is very simple, that if you do choose to continue practicing meditation, that you should keep consistency over the quantity. So what I mean by this, I said it in a previous session somewhere, but it's better to practice mindfulness 1 minute a day than to practice mindfulness for 5 hours once at the end of a month. Even though there was more time in general, it just doesn't have the same effect if we're not consistent with it. Because the main idea with meditation and mindfulness is that with neuroplasticity, we can train our brains slowly over time. Just like working out, it's a lot more effective if we get into a habit, if we get into a routine. So I really encourage you to find a way to get a routine, even if it's 30 seconds of deep breathing at the end of the day. That's better than nothing. My next key point is that this series has been fairly structured, and life isn't always structured. It can throw us curveballs. It can change what our focus is at any given moment. And so I don't want you to think that you have to do certain things in a certain order. I want you to be able to use these tools in a way that suits where you're at the moment. So, for example, if you are going through a stressful time in your life and you're feeling very, very overwhelmed, don't focus on purpose. Maybe focus on positivity. Maybe focus just on awareness. Just trying to calm down for a moment, to take a step back from all the overwhelming feelings. But maybe you're at a time in your life where you're feeling confused and you're feeling lost. Then you can take that time to really think about your purpose, think about your goals, your values, do some insight to figure out what you really want. And so really trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust that you know what you need, and you can figure out how to get to where you want to be. And you also have to remember to take everything in small steps. I'm not expecting you to move to Nepal and become a monk. The whole point of mindfulness is taking small steps, and over time that can have huge ramifications to both our life and the people around us. Which is my last point, that mindfulness practice isn't just for yourself. It's for every person around you. And even if you're feeling particularly lonely in this moment of your life, I want to affirm that you still can have a positive impact on the people around you. When you go to buy a coffee at Starbucks, when you interact with people in your workplace, mindfulness practice can spread and ripple out and have positive impacts to the entire world. So I really want you to remember that. At least I feel like I should really remember that. But I'm going to shift into a slightly more casual tone for the rest of the video, because just as much as this series was meant to educate you guys, it was meant as a way for me to share this thing that I was really passionate about, still am. I didn't set out with this intention, but I feel like I learned way more than I thought I would. I mean, obviously I was researching for the videos, so I knew I would learn something, but I really underestimated how much making these videos would help me personally. Particularly, I didn't plan this, but I was going through a pretty rough time when I was making these videos. I'm fine, everything's okay. But I was going through a particularly rough time, and yeah, I feel like that helped me come to a lot of realizations myself about myself and, the world and all that mumbo jumbo. Because I realized that I had kind of already done what I was trying to teach. Okay, how can I phrase this? So in one of the things when I was researching, the guy was giving an anecdote about how before mindfulness, he would switch hobbies willy-nilly, like do something for a month and then, lose excitement and pick up a new hobby. And then a month later, lose excitement and pick up a new hobby. And I was the exact same way. I would find novelty in these new things. I would always have a new thing. But then after a few months, I would, it would lose its luster. And I'd be like, okay, what else? What else is new? But I realized that with my ASMR videos, I had taken something that I was already passionate about. I was passionate about ASMR. But before I started making videos, I wouldn't have placed it in, like the list of top things I'm passionate about. It just was something that I was passionate about. And I felt that I had a good temperament for doing ASMR. And so, I took the leap and started making videos. And I feel like the key things there are that I thought about my purpose and my values. Because when I first started making videos, I had just finished my MBA. And a lot of business is talking about values and, guiding forces. And, they always say the best companies have strong values and purpose, like Apple, for example. And so I was fresh off of that line of thinking. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this new endeavor. I'm going to actually sit down and think about my values and my purpose, but from a frame of mind from business, not from a frame of mind of mindfulness at that time. And because I thought about my purpose, and because I connected my purpose to other people, I feel like it became such a huge part of my life, like one of my biggest passions right now. And so I guess what I'm saying to summarize is that I had already put into practice the things that I was teaching. And it was just this weird light bulb moment that was like, I did it already. It's possible. You can create happiness and meaning and passion out of a teeny tiny little flame. You can take this little ember of passion and feed it and feed it and feed it, and it grows and becomes meaningful and important and special. So yeah, I don't know if that made sense to you guys, but it was a very big moment. That was exactly how I reacted, by the way. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to take a moment and say that you guys are so important to me, and this thing that I've built / am still building is very, very important to me. I hope that that comes across to you guys. I know you guys leave me the nicest comments, so I know that it really does come across, but I genuinely hope that it can come across to you. Yeah, so I hope that you guys learned from this series. I hope that you guys continue with mindfulness, because I feel like it is such a genuinely good tool for everyone. And yeah, send me an email if you want to talk more. I'm super excited about talking to anyone, or leave a comment. I'm very excited for you guys to tell me your key takeaways, anything that stood out or spoke to you, or anything like that. I am so passionate about this subject. I could talk about it for hours and hours, so please leave me a comment. Please send me an email. I would love to hear from you. And one more thing before I go, I am doing a live Q&A on February 11th. That's a Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So an hour before when I normally post, since it's a school night. It is my 30th birthday the week after, so in part it's celebrating that. I'm very but also as I think most people are at their 30th birthday. But I would love to see you guys there. I have a community post if you want to ask me questions ahead of time to guarantee that they're in the video, but I'll also be taking live questions at the end, or in the middle, depending on what part. But I'm also going to be setting aside a time of the video specifically about mindfulness and meditation. So if you have any questions for me specifically, I would love to hear your questions. I would love to have some really thoughtful discussion about mindfulness and meditation, because obviously I'm not the end-all be-all. I'm also fairly beginner myself, but I love talking about it because it helps you flesh out your own ideas and your own thoughts about mindfulness in general just by having these discussions. But so I'd love to see you there. I would absolutely love to see you there. I would love to chat and hang out. If you can't make it, I would love to have you leave a question and I can answer it and you can watch it later. But I hope that you enjoyed this series. Again, this has been the biggest passion project of mine, and I am so happy that I did it just because of what I learned personally. But I've also had some amazing responses from you guys, and how this series has helped you guys change your own lives. So I'm very, very, very grateful for that, and this has been incredibly fulfilling for me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I can get across how much this means to me, but I hope that it's come across somewhat. Anyways, I'm gonna end now. I will see you next time. Bye. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is a gentle reminder to take off your headphones or turn down the volume, since there might be a loud ad soon. And if you enjoyed this video, you should definitely go like, comment, and subscribe.